Where are
We're
we?
going to start.
It's going.
It's going?
Is it going? Can you see?
Do you see two lines in the middle?
Yeah, it's going. It's counting.
Okay.
Good. Where is it? 57.
We're on Nun Zayin, Amud Aleph. We didn't turn the page. We're up to Boyer of Mari. It's really the end of the last piece of Gemara. We're discussing making the mincha chametz. So Rav Mari says chimtza.
We're not here, right?
It's 57.
It's about 6-7 lines from the bottom.
But it's towards the end of it.
It's like 7 lines from the bottom. Rabbi, man.
Rav Mari's question is like this: Chimtza b'reisha shel mizbeach. Let's say he brought the kaimitz up to the top of the altar. You know the scoop. It's in his hand. He brings it up to the top of the altar, and up there he waits long enough for it to become chametz, or maybe he adds some yeast. No, would he be adding yeast? Or he waits till it becomes chametz. So you're not allowed to make the kaimitz chametz. So
what is the protocol? You're supposed to bring it up and make sure that it's not supposed to
you're
become
not.
chametz.
Nothing should be chametz. Yeah.
But
So he takes it up to the altar. It's already on top of the altar, and it becomes chametz up on top of the altar. So the question is, mahu asher takrivu amar Achmana? Is it asher takrivu? The Torah says that you shall not bring anything that's chametz, and here it's already brought. V'ha'akrava, you already brought it on top. Or maybe we don't say that. What does it mean bring? Bring means to offer it. Doesn't just mean to bring it close. He brought it on the altar.
this is not what we used to say by Zvachim. You bring it up, you don't take it down.
So yeah, but the idea here is that because it's already on the altar, do we say that it's considered like he brought it already? And the prohibition was don't bring it chametz. This was already brought. Or do we say that it wasn't offered on the fire yet, and it's not considered brought? So that's his question, and he says take it.
So chronologically, what's going on is he's bringing the kaimitz. He's going to do the kaimitz. When does it become chametz? You said
Up there on top of the altar.
at what point?
Before he puts it on the fire.
Before he puts it on the fire, it becomes chametz. So it is chametz.
Right.
So
The question is, did he violate the prohibition of don't bring mincha chametz, or when he brought it, which was he bring it up on the altar, it wasn't chametz.
So at what point distinguishes bringing or not bringing?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Now the Gemara goes back to the general gist of the brisa. What the brisa told us was that I could have thought that the prohibition is only the kaimitz itself. That the kaimitz shouldn't be chametz. But before I do the kmitza, the rest of the mincha, the general mincha, I wouldn't have known that there was a prohibition. So it comes along the pasuk, and it says, kol mincha. That the mincha itself, not just the kaimitz. So the Gemara asks, "V'hashta denafka mikol mincha." Now that we know from kol mincha that the whole mincha is not allowed to be chametz, the whole offering, meal offering, asher takriv lamali. It's good.
Yeah, it's a text from Levi Smith.
Oh,
It's on the plane.
good. Thank you. Now I can concentrate. So asher takriv lamali. So what do I need? Asher takrivu. Asher takrivu told me that the kaimitz can't. Look, there's two parts to the mincha. There's the kaimitz, the part that's offered on the altar, and then there's the part that the kainim eat. Before the kmitza, it's all mixed up as one. So I know that you can't make the when it's all mixed up as one before the kmitza. I know that you can't make it chametz. So why do I need the pasuk to tell me that you can't make the kaimitz chametz? You can't make the whole mincha chametz. So the Gemara explains. Actually, what I'm going to use those words, asher takrivu teaches me the kaimitz, because that's the part that's brought. Mincha is the entire mincha. Asher takrivu is the part that's brought. So it says, mi boyle kedetanya. I need it for what was taught in the Brisa. This is very interesting, and if you follow the names here, the names are going to switch on us. So it's gonna have a problem with the way the Brisa is put. So it's going to have to change the names. So you know, this one holds this and that one holds that. So the first one is Asher Takrivu L'Rabbeis Minchas Nesachim L'Chimotz. Asher Takrivu teaches me that when I bring the flour and oil and wine that comes along with every sacrifice, you're not allowed to make that flour and oil chametz. Divrei Rabbi Yossi Haglili. This is the words of Rabbi Yossi the Galilean. He was a friend student of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva Imer, however, Rabbi Akiva says, L'Rabbeis lechem apanim l'chimatz. It's coming to include that the lechem apanim, Asher Takrivu is teaching me that the lechem apanim cannot be chametz. The Gemara now challenges the Brisa.
How come? What do you mean the lechem apanim can't be
The
chametz?
showbread. It's called lechem, but it's actually matzah. No, it was made in the shape of bread, but it had to be baked within 18 minutes. So,
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now minchas nesachim may pay the same. We have a problem. Rabbi Yossi Haglili says that it's coming to tell me that the flour and the oil that comes along with the sacrifice is not allowed to become chametz. So the Gemara challenges that. You need a pasuk to tell me that it's not allowed to become chametz? There's no water there. All there is flour and oil. Now there's a rule that mei peiros, fruit juices, including oil, is umei peiros, turn the page, ein machmitzim. They don't become chametz. Now there's a big discussion about this. That it actually, if you mix it, we hold that if you mix water together with the mei peiros, together with fruit juices, it becomes chametz faster than 18 minutes. It's a problem. Really? But if it's just alone, if it's just fruit juice alone, then it doesn't become chametz. So why are we saying that, you have to be careful that the minchas nesachim, which is flour and oil, doesn't become chametz? There's no water. All there is oil, and oil doesn't become chametz, flour with oil. So Amar Reish Lakish, Omer Haya Rabbi Yossi Haglili. Reish Lakish answers this. Reish Lakish was the first generation, second generation, Amira, in Eretz Yisrael.
So he was after Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi.
Yes.
Okay.
And he explains that Omer Haya Rabbi Yossi Haglili would say Minchas Nesachim Megavl B'Mayim Uksheira. That the Minchas Nesachim was actually kneaded with water. Of course, there was a lot of oil. It was 2 lug or 3 lug of oil per isarin. It was a lot of oil. But there was also water there. So, this is like in the ingredients. If it doesn't say water, I don't know if it means that there's no water. It could be water could be added in without. I'm not sure. I don't know. Is that possible?
Usually it says it.
Usually it says water.
I don't know.
Okay. So what happened is in the Torah, the way Reish Lakish is explaining Rabbi Yossi Haglili, that the Torah gives us the ingredients, but it doesn't say water because it doesn't need to say water. It assumes that there's water there. Okay.
So they have to be even more careful than 18 minutes.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. This is a big discussion back on Daf and Gimel. My brother came over to me and said, when we learned Daf and Gimel, he said, you learned Mei Peiros, it's a big sugya. There's a big Tosfos over here. Yeah. There's a big nice big Taisus over here. So you're asking an interesting question. So how could they be so clear? That he quotes this Gemara. He says, "Kiven dekamayim b'hadishem yicheli las chametz." So how do you know how long you have? I guess it means you can't stop kneading it for a second. That's probably what it would mean. And say, oh, I still have 18 minutes. I have 17 minutes left. You can't do that in this instance. You have to be kneading until it's baked by the or burnt. Okay. So we had a question on Rabbi Yossi Aglili's Asher Takrivu, and we responded that there's water in there. Right? Now we have a question on the other way. Now, lechem apanim midas yavishi. The problem with the lechem apanim is that, so we have a verse according to Rabbi Akiva that tells me that the lechem apanim cannot become chametz. The problem is that what vessel was the lechem apanim made in? So it was measured in a dry measuring cup, and v'shamana leila Rabbi Akiva, and we know what Rabbi Akiva's opinion, damar midas yavish leinaskadsha, that the dry measuring cups don't sanctify what you put inside it. It's based on a machlekes later, but we had this before, that when you put something into a holy vessel, that food becomes kodesh, becomes holy. If it's not put in a holy vessel, then it's not holy unless there's something else that sanctified it. So here, when I have the flour and I put it into it is a holy vessel, but it's not a vessel that sanctifies the food that's in it. The midas yavish, the isarin that's used. So it's not a holy vessel. It's not sanctifying the food that's in it. So let's say it becomes chametz. Nothing, so start over. It wasn't lechem apanim. It wasn't anything because it wasn't sanctified yet, because the dry vessels don't sanctify. So because it's put into the dried vessel, so why do we need a verse to tell me that you're going to violate the Isser by the lechem apanim? If you make it chametz, just start over until it's baked. It's not considered lechem apanim. So there's no issue there. How could Rabbi Akiva say it's coming to teach me that you're going to violate the Isser of making it chametz by lechem apanim? It's not lechem apanim yet until it's baked, and once it's baked, then if it's chametz, so then start over. It wasn't the lechem apanim. Okay. So shalach rebruven. It's actually it's added. It's supposed to be ravin. Shalach ravin mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan. Ravin was one of the travelers that went back and forth to bring teachings from Israel to Babylonia. So he brings in the name of Rabbi Yochanan kachi yatzah shal Mishnah. This is the way we're going to explain this Mishnah. I said it was a brisa, right? Isn't that interesting? He calls it a Mishnah. So interesting. Okay. It says Kedatanya, it says it's a brisa. Ve'epach. And we're going to turn it around. How does it go? It goes like this. Asher takriv l'rabis lechem apanim lechima. It's the verse that says that you will bring should not be chametz. Is coming to include that you bring. It says that you will bring to Hashem. Should not be chametz is coming to include the lechem apanim. Whose opinion is this? The Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Yossi Aglili says the lechem apanim, not Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, we don't know anything about what he holds about dry measuring. Does it become sanctified in the dry measuring cup? We don't know about that. So therefore, actually we will say that we do, but therefore we'll say that this is perfect. It fits according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili. We don't have the problem with Rabbi Akiva's opinion of dry measuring things not becoming sanctified.
Because it doesn't become...
Because it's Rabbi Yossi Aglili. This is Rabbi Yossi Aglili's opinion.
Okay,
we switched it. We attributed it to Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Kiva, so what's Rabbi Kiva's opinion? What we said before from Rabbi Yossi Aglili. The Rabbis minchas nesachim lechimat. It's coming to include minchas nesachim. And how would we do? What would we do over there? Ayatz mei peiros. I guess we'll have to say what Rish Lakish said for Rabbi Yossi Aglili. We'll say that there's water. Okay. Now he goes on and he says, "Va'azda," or the Gemara says this. "Va'azda Rabbi Yochanan l'tamei." Rabbi Yochanan here goes according to his reason. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, ve'echad mitalmidei Rabbi Yishmael amr davar echad. Rabbi Yossi Aglili and one of Rabbi Yishmael's students say the same thing. Okay, now we're going to quote a machlekes between Rabbi Yishmael's students. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yonasan are Rabbi Yishmael's students. Now, one of the scholars, they tried to determine what the different styles of teaching were. They say that Rabbi Yishmael and these students, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yonasan, are very into darshaning psukim, and they were more south than. This is what they say. The south of Israel and the south of Babylonia, they were into the textual reading and how to darshan the psukim. Everything was based on the text, and in the north, they were not as into that, and so therefore we'll find that there's more psukim here from Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Yishmael. It's interesting. Rabbi Yishmael has a different style, but and they even make a difference between Rav and Shmuel. That Rav would have more psukim than Shmuel would. Anyway, so what we're saying here is that Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva were famous. They argued. Rabbi Akiva understood. He held that the Torah doesn't speak in a regular language. Everything in the Torah is precise, and so therefore, if there's an extra letter, an extra thing, you have to. It's teaching you a different halacha. Rabbi Shmuel, his opinion was that the Torah speaks in the language of man, and if it repeats things, it could be it's repeating it only because there was one thing that was added, so it repeats the whole story. He has a different style of. Students of Rabbi Yishmael say the same thing as Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Yossi, it could be Rabbi Yossi Aglili is a student of Rabbi Akiva. So, who's the student of Rabbi Yishmael that says the same thing as Rabbi Yossi Aglili? It's Umanu. Who is it? Rabbi Yoshia. Okay, now we're going to read a brisa where we're going to see Rabbi Yoshia's opinion, and it's going to fit with Rabbi Yossi Aglili. And Rabbi Yossi Aglili, according to our new interpretation, Rabbi Yossi Aglili says that the lechem apanim cannot become chametz. In order to say that, we're going to need to say that dry measurements sanctify what's in it, or else you wouldn't need to say lechem apanim don't you can't make them chametz, right? Inherent in saying that there's a prohibition of making the lechem apanim chametz, you have to say that dry measurements sanctify what gets put into it. Mm-hmm. So, Rabbi Yossi Aglili is going to say the same as Rabbi Yoshia. The Tanya. This is talking about the vessels of the altar. It says that they anointed them and he sanctified them. Rabbi Yoshia says, Midas halach nimshach bein min bifnim bein min bachutz. It says there's an emphasis on them, anointed them. So as opposed to what? So Rabbi Yoshia says, well, there's two types of measuring things, two types of utensils. There's liquid measurings and dry measuring. Liquid measurings were anointed on the inside and on the outside. Midas yavesh nimshach mi bifnim ve'im nimshach mi bachutz. The dry measurements were anointed on the inside but not on the outside. Okay, so we see he anointed them. That means, referring to the outside of the vessels, that only the liquid ones were anointed on the outside but not the dry ones. But what that tells me is that the dry measuring were anointed. If that's the case, then it will sanctify what's in it. What's the difference if it's anointed on the inside and the outside? Maybe if it touches it or something from the outside. Rabbi Yonasan says differently. Midas halach nimshach mi bifnim, vein nimshach mi bachutz. He says we're only talking about the liquid measurings, and he anointed them means the inside, but not the outside. So what's going to be with midas yavish? Lein nimshach kolikar. Wasn't anointed at all. So Rabbi Yonasan would hold like Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Yoshia would hold like Rabbi Yossi Aglili, regarding if the dry measurements sanctify. Rabbi Yossi Aglili says that you have to be careful not to let the lechem apanim become chametz based on this. And Rabbi Yonasan brings a proof to his opinion that the midas yavish was not sanctified. The dry measurings weren't anointed at all. I'll prove it to you that it doesn't sanctify what's in it. The ksiv, talking about the two breads. It says that they're bikurim laHashem. Eimasai hein laHashem. When are they to Hashem? Lachar shenefu, after they're baked. It says chametz tiafena. Then they become bikurim laHashem. Why isn't it bikurim laHashem before they're baked? Must be because they're not sanctified before they're baked. It's only after they're baked that they become sanctified. Okay. See, that's not going to be so simple. But that's Rabbi Yonasan's proof. Rabbi Yoshia, Rashi points out, Rabbi Yoshia says that it's bikurim laHashem doesn't mean just because the verse says that they're baked, these happen to be baked chametz, they're bikurim laHashem, doesn't mean that bikurim laHashem is after they're baked. It means that they were bikurim laHashem from before also. That's how Rabbi Yoshia would learn it, because he holds that they were sanctified already in the measuring cup, in the dry measuring cup. So the Gemara explains, what is the machlekes between Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Yonasan? Ba'isam, the word in the pasuk, it says vayimshachim vayikadish oisam, them, the pronoun, plural pronoun. Rabbi Yoshia says oisam, it says them. L'mu'utei midas yavesh bachutz. It's excluding midas yavesh on the outside. That means midas yavesh is sanctified on the inside.
So oisam, he's mentioning oisam.
Oisam, that they are sanctified on the outside, the wet measurings, liquid measurings, but not the dry ones are not sanctified on the outside, but they are sanctified on the inside, which means they sanctify what's put inside it. Rabbi Yonasan saver midas yavesh cholhu. He says that midas yavesh is entirely mundane. It's not sanctified at all. We don't need a pasuk to tell me that he sanctified the liquid ones and not the dry ones. The dry ones are not part of this. The Oisam is excluding the wet ones on the outside, that he sanctified them on the inside, but not on the outside. Okay, the Gemara asks now. Everything is clear, so far everything is good. But the Gemara questions, why did we say that Rabbi Yossi Aglili goes like one of Rabbi Shmuel's students? And which students? Rabbi Yoshia. Both of them hold that the dry measurings are sanctified on the inside. And that's why we need the verse, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, to say that the lechem apanim should not become chametz, because they were already sanctified once they were put in the measuring cup, and you have to make sure that they don't become chametz. But if you say that Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbi Yoshia have the same opinion, you could have done the opposite. You could have said Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yonasan have the same opinion also, that the dry measurings are not.
How do two words, asher to agree, become to teach you that the shofar should have become chametz?
Well, those are extra words.
Okay, so
it has to be teaching me something.
Right.
So it's talking about something that's brought to Hashem.
Okay.
So what is it that's brought to Hashem? So one of them says, well, we never discussed the Menachos Daf that's brought on the altar. The other one says, well, we never discussed the lechem apanim. Is that allowed to be chametz? So it says, okay, we have an extra word here, we're going to use it for the lechem apanim. The other one would hold, says, well, what about the Menachos Daf? He says, you don't need to tell me that because there's no water there. And the other one would say, you don't need to tell me the lechem apanim because the lechem apanim is in a dry measuring cup. Right. So each one has his understanding of what these extra words would be discussing. So, but we still have to work it out for each one, why it's significant.
So it's not that the word asher tiku corresponds at all to lechem apanim. They're just like, by process of elimination, we're going to figure this out.
It's got to be one of them. It's got to be something.
Right. So
we don't have anything else. It's going to be that. So the Gemara asks, Leimanami Rabbi Akiva, ve'echad mitalmidei Rabbi Shmuel amar davar echad. Why didn't the Gemara say that Rabbi Akiva and one of Rabbi Shmuel's students say the same thing, Amana Rabbi Yonasan? Rabbi Yonasan, Rabbi Yonasan holds that the dry measurements are mundane. And I don't need the pasuk to tell me that they're not sanctified, that they're not part of the equation. So the Gemara says, one second. Yes, they agree about the dry measuring, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yonasan. But do they agree about the liquid measuring? Rabbi Yonasan had a chiddush. He said that the liquid measurements are not are not sanctified on the outside. What does Rabbi Akiva hold about that? He may hold that the liquid measurements are sanctified on the outside, and it's only the dry ones that aren't. So the Gemara says, "Mishum d'leishavi b'midas lach la'adadi," because they're not equivalent. They actually don't have the same opinion regarding the liquid measurements. Yes, they have the same opinion about the dry measurements, that it's not sanctified. Okay. Now, as we read through this Gemara, we missed out a very important point. We said that we're measuring the flour in a dry measuring, and it doesn't become sanctified in the dry measuring. So Amalei Rav Papa Abaya. Papa says to Abaya, "V'ika bisa, the lachel. What about the bisa? The bisa is the bowl that's used to knead the dough. You only discussed the measuring, and then you made this whole thing about it's all midas yavish. It's all. But what about that's a liquid. That's made for liquid. Is there an English word for bisa? Does he say anything over there?
She calls it a bowl.
A bowl. Okay. Rashi says actually Rashi wants to say keli shaloshin ba. You see it in the Bach. Keli shaloshin. It's a kneading bowl. The Bach amends the Rashi. It's sharis is supposed to turn into shaloshin. Lush means to knead. So it's a kneading bowl, and that should sanctify it. So Abaye gives him an answer. Papa is really a student of Rava. I guess a student of Abaye as well. Abaye gives him an answer. He says, "Amar lei kegoin shalosh al gabi katavlia." Abaye says that we're talking about that he needed it on top of a piece of leather. That it wasn't a vessel. Okay, you hear this? They made a case where there was no midas lach for it to become sanctified, and so therefore the whole machlekes Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi Haglili is, would the dry measurement sanctify it on its own? The Gemara says, "Ihachi." If that's the case, that you're coming up with an example that you're going to avoid using a utensil that would sanctify it, so the Ka'amali Rabbi Yonasan Teidalach, this that Rabbi Yonasan says, I'll prove it to you that the dry measuring doesn't sanctify Shareina Mekudeshes, because it doesn't sanctify it until after it's baked. We're talking about the Shtei Alechem, Bikurim LaHashem, Leimalei. Let Rabbi Yoshia tell Rabbi Yonasan about his proof. Going to Kaila be Saran Dechol. Tell him another story that it was made in that case, the Bikurim. It's not Bikurim. It's the Shtei Alechem, which is called Bikurim.
Called Bikurim. Lechem Panim.
The Shtei Alechem on Shavuos is called Bikurim Lashem because the first time that the new grain the wheat grain was used as a sacrifice. So let him say that you measured it in that case in a mundane measuring, but that's not a proof that a sanctified measuring cup that the dry measurements in the temple didn't sanctify. In that instance, you didn't use the dry measuring cup of the temple. You used the dry measuring cup from the house. If you're ready to say that your story of the lechem apanim there was no liquid utensil because you used a piece of leather to knead the dough on, if that's what you're ready to say, so say that when Rabbi Yosha tries to prove that the dry measurings don't sanctify, tell him that, we didn't use a temple one in that case. So Gemara says, whoa, hold it. Yeah, you're taking this too far. It says, Hachi Hashta. So now, Bish Laima Bisa, when we talk about the kneading bowl, like Kasav Rachmana Deliavad Bisa Lamelashpe, the Torah doesn't tell me that I need a kneading bowl. So, Kilashla Al Gabi Katavlia, Leslamba. So, okay, I used a leather mat, a placemat to knead the dough. Ela Isaran. When it comes to the measuring cup, The Torah tells me to use to take an isaron. That means I have to measure it. B'kayel ba and measure it. So shavik isaron the kodesh, b'kayel b'isaron the chol. You're going to say that you're going to leave a sanctified measuring one and you're going to use one from the house, a mundane one. That's not logical. The Torah says to use an isaron. Okay. So what did we explain? The machlekes Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbi Akiva. We said why the Gemara doesn't say that Rabbi Shmuel's student, Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Akiva say the same thing. We also explained why the machlekes about midas yavish, if it sanctifies, the dry measuring cups sanctify, that will explain the machlekes of the brisa, and we don't have to take into discussion the kneading of it in the measuring cup because it wasn't used. Okay. Tana Rabbanan. The rabbis taught in a brisa, Minayin lamayla mi besar chatas, mi besar asham, mi besar kachi kadashim, mi kachim kalam, mi meiser aimer, meiser shtei alechem, mi lechem apanim, mishar mincha shubalei saseh. We have a bunch of things here that are not meant to be
now we're moving on, this whole first section is settled?
We're not done with the yeast. We're still involved in yeast. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying we settled why, what.
Oh yeah, about taktira, asher takriva.
We settled what that covers.
Yeah. We're not totally out of it. I don't want you to think like we're still discussing this. Okay. We're bringing in a new point. We have a bunch of things that are not meant to be brought on the altar. Why? Because they already had something from the sacrifice that was brought on the altar. So, for example, korban chatas, it has parts of it that are the fats are brought on the altar. The flesh of it is eaten by the kayanim. It's not brought on the altar. The same with the asham, or with other sacrifices. The same with the omer. A section of it, the kaimetz of it, was brought on the altar. The shtei alechem and the lechem apanim, the shtei alechem had the sheep, the two sheep that were brought on Shavuos. That sanctifies them. So therefore the bread itself is not brought on the altar. The lechem apanim has the 2 spoons of frankincense. Remember the frankincense? That was brought, those were brought on the altar. The bread itself is not brought on the altar. The remnants of every mincha, the scoop is brought on the altar. The remnants is not brought on the altar. How do we know that anyone that brings the remnants of all of these things, the meat or all of these things, on the altar, that he violates a leisaseh?